Hello, I'm Matt from Ludobox.fr and today I'm going to give you an overview of Fief England. Fief England is a management game for 2 to 4 players ages 14 and up, and it lasts for around 2 hours. In this game, each player is a lineage and you want to assert dominance over England by acquiring titles, by battling against other lords and ladies, and also by routing Vikings. So this is a game all about area control but also management, because you want to build your kingdom and your titles. So every player is going to have a player board with your lords, ladies and servants, which give your lords and ladies powers and their titles and their troops. And you are also going to be present on the main board with your force and your troops. They are face down for a reason. You're going to see that in a few moments. You also have different decks here and different things you can pick. And then you also have the sequence which is there. That's the basic gist of what is there. So how does a game of Fief England play? Well, you play 5 to 7 rounds. If you reach the end of the 5th round, at the end of each round, you're going to have a check. If a player has sufficient victory points, they win the game. How do you gain victory points? By acquiring titles and different other things. And you go through this sequence, which has 7 steps. So the first step is the yay phase. I'm going to go over it a bit later in the video. Then you have the cards phase. During the cards phase, you're going to fill your hand with cards. And you may play these cards. You may draw from these decks. You have events and calamities. The events are going to boost things such as production. For example, this one may avert a famine calamity or simply boost your mills. But you also have calamities, albeit not in the first round. And this, for example, will place Vikings. And when you place a calamity, you will roll the die and see where it goes. For example, with a 5, the Vikings will land here. You also have servants, which give your characters benefits, but you also have new characters, new lords, for example, that you can place here, or titles. For example, here I have a bee of the spring, and if I have the bee of the spring, one of my characters can become an abbess. And for example, here Lucia takes the cloth and she becomes an abbess. She gains new abilities, she can't marry anymore, but she's fine, she's going to do stuff. And then, when all players have discarded a card from the hand, filled their hand with cards and played their cards in turn order, starting with the first player and going clockwise, we move on to the next step. The next step is the revenue phase. Every player is going to get income based on the cities they control. If they have mills, it's worth more. If they have different things like relics, it might be worth more. And also, if there are any Vikings on the board, it's divided by 2. Then you move on to the purchase phase. During the purchase phase, the first thing you can do is buying the ransom of your lords and ladies, because your lords and ladies can be captured by the Vikings and you are going to pay them 2 money for them, plus 2 for each title they have. And then players may buy stuff. You may buy units. If you buy units, you simply pay the price of the unit and place it somewhere where your lord or lady is. And you may notice I have a lord and a lady here, and if I have additional characters, I will have additional tokens to place, so at different locations. You may also buy titles. To buy a title, you need to pay what is printed here. Obviously, you need to control some things there, and if you pay that money, you get the title, and getting the title is very simple. It gives you 1 victory point. You may buy other things such as a castle, new mills that boost your income, and so on and so forth. Now, once everyone is happy, again going clockwise, we move on to the travel phase. During the travel phase, every lord will have the ability to move from 1 to 2 steps. When you move with a lord or lady, you may move them with any number of troops, and you may drop troops on the way. You can also use naval movement from port to port. So how does that work? Well, you move, and if you have an abbot or an abbess, you can get relics. And these relics are going to give you extra powers, or if you offer them to the King of England, you might get a victory point if you are the first to do so. So that would be very nice, but you would give your relic. You also have the ability of moving through other players if they accept to, and if you ever land on the Excalibur space, you may try to hoist it if you are a male lord, which is not a cleric. To do so, you will roll a die, and if you have 4 or more, you will get Excalibur, and if there is no king, you will become the King of England immediately. Then once all the lords and ladies have had the ability to move, you move on to the Viking phase. If there are Vikings, they are going to move. If there are Vikings calamities, they are going to arrive. And if they arrive with 1 Jarl and 5 Vikings. They are going to fight, and they fight with these dice, and you fight them with these dice. Every single troop has some swords or battle points which are there, and depending on the total that you have, you will have the ability to roll a certain number of dice, ranging from 1 to 3. And then there are losses that you have to apply on these dice. Then, if you have a cleric and you encounter Vikings, you have the ability to convert them. To do so, you can pay them money to lessen the risk, and then you roll the d6, and if you have 4 to 6, you manage to convert them and they leave. If you do not, your cleric might die or might just go back home. And then once you have resolved all Vikings, you move on to regular battles against your opponents. They perform kind of the same, except you can't convert your opponents because they are already belonging to your faith. And then you move on to the end of round phase, during which you pass the first player marker and move on to the next round. And that's basically it for the turn sequence. Obviously, I didn't mention the yay phase because I wanted you to understand how the game flows before that. So during the yay phase, from round 3 and onwards, you may marry another character. That is an alliance, so you will have to choose a character from another player, another family. And obviously you can't marry if you are a cleric, and you can't marry a cleric. And marrying has benefits, such as sharing resources. You may share money with them, you may share other things, and you also may share titles. For example, if they are the king, you become the queen. And being the queen has advantages. It gives you extra money. Then you also may have a king election. You can elect a new king for the Kingdom of England. To do so, you will have to vote, and the vote is going to be done with these tokens, and all of your lords and ladies will have votes depending on their titles. And then the king will also choose to levy taxes. They levy 12 money, and they will be able to distribute them. However, if they don't distribute them fairly, people might revolt. Then you move through all of these phases, and if you are at end step from round 5 to 7, if a player has 3 victory points, they win the game. And if they are married, you need 4 victory points to win. That's it for Fief England. So this is a game all about getting political, economic, and also military influence, all while taking titles, maybe becoming the King of England, also routing Vikings, and maybe swatting your opponents in the face. Bye bye, see you on Ludochrono.fr.